look, life is hard. It's unfair, unpredictable, and sometimes downright cruel. But here's the truth the moment you start pointing your finger at everyone else. Your parents, your boss, your friends, the system, whoever, you've already surrendered the one thing that could actually change your life, your responsibility. Blame is comforting, isn't it? It tells you it's not your fault. You're the victim here. Somebody owes you something. But what does that mindset get you? Nothing but stagnation. The longer you live there, the longer you stay stuck, angry, bitter, and powerless. Here's the hard pill to swallow: your failures are yours. Maybe life dealt you a bad hand, fine. But what you do with that hand, that's on you. And that's not a curse, it's an opportunity. Because the moment you accept that it's your responsibility, you also gain the freedom to change it. Failure isn't the end of the story, it's the beginning of growth. Every failure is a data point. It's the universe saying, hey, here's where you're weak. Fix this, learn this, grow here. If you're brave enough to listen, your failures will teach you more than your victories ever could. And this is where discipline enters the picture. You can't just sit around hoping for someone to rescue you or for circumstances to magically improve. Get up. Build habits. Do the work. Not because it's easy, but because it's the only way forward. Own your failures. Take that brutal, unfiltered look in the mirror and say, yeah, this one's on me, and then do something about it. Because the second you take full ownership, you stop being a victim and start being the author of your own story. So stop blaming, stop whining, stop waiting, stand up, take responsibility, and start building the life that you know you're capable of living. It's hard, yes, but it's yours. And that's the most powerful position you could ever be in. Radical personal responsibility is about accepting, without excuses or conditions, that your life is in your hands. It means looking at every situation, your successes, your failures, your habits, your relationships, and saying, this is on me, not in a way that crushes you with guilt or shame, but in a way that empowers you to act. Because as long as you believe someone else is in control of your life, you've given up the only real power. You have the power to change it. The temptation to shift blame is everywhere. It feels good to point at your parents and say they didn't raise you right, or at your boss and claim they don't appreciate you, or at society and insist the system is rigged against you. And maybe, in some ways, all of that is true. But none of those truths will move your life forward. Complaining about the world won't change the world. What it will do is lock you in a cycle where you're always waiting for someone else to fix things, waiting for life to become fair, waiting for an apology that will never come. Meanwhile, time keeps moving and nothing in your life actually gets better. Taking radical responsibility doesn't mean you deny the reality of your circumstances or ignore the injustices you've faced. It means you stop using them as an excuse to stand still. You can acknowledge that life is unfair and still say, okay, so what can I do right now to change this? That shift in mindset is what separates the people who grow from the people who stay stuck. When you take ownership, you put yourself back in the driver's seat. Suddenly, failure isn't a dead end, it's feedback. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what can I do differently next time? That simple change in thinking opens up options you couldn't see before because you were too busy pointing fingers. And with those options comes agency, the ability to make choices that actually shape your future instead of just reacting to the past. There's nothing easy about radical responsibility. It's uncomfortable to admit that you're the common denominator in every problem in your life. It forces you to confront habits you've been defending, lies you've been telling yourself, and fears you've been avoiding. But that discomfort is where transformation begins. The moment you accept that no one is coming to save you, you free yourself to become the person who can save yourself. The truth is, you can't control every event in your life, but you can control your response. And that response over time is what defines your reality. Radical personal responsibility doesn't guarantee an easy life, but it guarantees a life where you're no longer powerless, where every choice you make is a step toward the person you know you could be. The victim mindset is seductive because it offers comfort without effort. When something goes wrong, blaming others gives you an instant sense of relief. You tell yourself, it's not my fault. And for a moment, you feel lighter. That temporary comfort is why so many people cling to it, even when it's destroying their chances of growth. But the truth is, living in that state of mind keeps you powerless. You can't change what you refuse to own, and if everyone else is always the problem, you'll spend your entire life waiting for someone else to fix it. This mindset often starts subtly. Maybe you grew up in a home where you were constantly criticized or overlooked, so now every failure feels like someone else is doing. Maybe your workplace is genuinely toxic, and it becomes easy to convince yourself that success is impossible there. Or maybe life really has thrown you curveball after curveball, loss, financial struggles, betrayal. When life feels stacked against you, the victim role doesn't just feel justified, it feels natural. But no matter how justified it seems, it traps you in the same place, helplessness. What makes the victim mindset so dangerous is that it rewires how you see the world. Every setback becomes another piece of evidence that the world is against you. Every criticism feels like an attack rather than an opportunity to learn. Every success someone else achieves becomes proof that life is unfair. Over time, that mindset corrodes your ambition, your discipline, and even your relationships. People start to pull away because no one wants to stay close to someone who refuses to take ownership of anything. The irony is that while the victim mindset feels like protection, it's really a cage. It shields you from discomfort in the short term, but robs you of growth in the long term. By blaming everyone else, you avoid the painful process of self-examination, the process of asking, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better? What can I change now? That process hurts, but it's also the only path to progress. Breaking free from this mindset requires brutal honesty. You have to look at your life and admit that while you didn't choose everything that happened to you, you are choosing how you respond to it. That shift doesn't happen overnight, and it isn't easy, but it's the only way to reclaim your sense of agency. When you start taking even small pieces of ownership, your attitude, your habits, your daily choices, you begin to see that you're not as powerless as you believed. The victim mindset tells you that you're trapped. Responsibility shows you that you're not. But you can't see that until you're willing to step out of the comfort of blame and face the hard, liberating truth. Your life is what you decide to make of it, no matter where you started. The power of agency is the quiet strength that changes everything. It is the understanding that no matter how unfair or unpredictable life becomes, you still hold the ability to choose your next step. That ability to act, to decide, and to move forward is what separates those who stay stuck from those who rise. Agency doesn't erase hardship or guarantee success, but it ensures that your future isn't dictated solely by your past or by the people around you. When you embrace agency, you stop waiting for perfect conditions. Too often, people delay action because they convince themselves they need more resources, more support, or a different environment to succeed. But the truth is, even the smallest decision to take control, waking up earlier, learning a new skill, confronting a bad habit, creates momentum. These choices might feel insignificant in the moment, but they accumulate. Over time, those small, intentional actions reshape the course of your life in ways you can't predict at the beginning. Agency also shifts how you see problems. Without it, obstacles look like walls, impossible to climb. With it, they become puzzles, difficult, yes, but solvable with enough effort and creativity. Instead of saying, I can't, you start asking, how can I? That subtle shift in language rewires how you think, and when your thoughts change, your actions follow. What once felt like an unchangeable reality becomes a challenge you're willing to take on. There's also a deep sense of dignity that comes with exercising agency. It's not about ego or pride. It's about knowing you have a role in shaping your life. That knowledge gives you a sense of responsibility for your successes and your failures. When you achieve something, you can look back and say, I did that. When you fail, you can examine it and say, here's what I'll do differently. Both outcomes teach you something valuable, and both keep you moving forward. The danger of ignoring your agency is that you surrender to the narrative that life just happens to you. You become a passenger drifting wherever circumstances or other people steer you. That passivity might feel safe, but it comes at the cost of growth, purpose, and self-respect. By reclaiming your agency, you reclaim your role as the driver of your own story. This doesn't mean you can control everything. Far from it. Life will always bring events you didn't plan for and pain you didn't ask for. But even then, you still choose your response. You decide whether to let the setback define you or to let it refine you. You decide whether to stay down or stand up again. And every time you make that choice to act instead of surrender, you strengthen that muscle of agency turning it into the foundation of a life built with intention instead of accident. Failure is often treated like a verdict, as if it declares who you are and what you are capable of, but in reality, failure is a teacher, perhaps the most honest one you will ever have. It strips away illusions, confronts you with the truth of where you are, and offers you the raw material to build something better. The problem is that most people run from it. They see failure as proof of inadequacy rather than an invitation to learn, so they hide from it or pretend it didn't happen. But when you learn to see failure differently, you stop fearing it and start using it. Every failure carries information. It tells you where your preparation was lacking, where your strategy was flawed, or where your discipline faltered. Instead of saying, I failed because I'm not good enough, you begin to ask, what went wrong? What can I adjust next time? That shift is powerful because it turns failure from an ending into a process. Growth doesn't come from getting everything right the first time. It comes from having the courage to try, fall short, analyze, and try again with more wisdom than before. This perspective also forces humility, and humility is essential for growth. Failure exposes blind spots you didn't even know you had. It reminds you that you don't know everything, that you aren't as prepared as you thought, and that you still have room to grow. For some people, that realization feels crushing, but for those willing to accept it, it becomes fuel. It allows you to approach your goals with a clearer mind and a sharper sense of what it will truly take to reach them. Another hidden value of failure is that it builds resilience. Each time you fail and get back up, you teach yourself that setbacks aren't fatal. That lesson hardens you in the best way. It makes you less fragile, less dependent on things going perfectly, and more willing to take risks. Without failure, there is no real courage, because courage only exists in the presence of fear and the possibility of falling short. What failure demands most of all is responsibility. It is easy to point fingers, to blame the market, the weather, your team, or even fate. But when you take ownership of failure, when you say, this is mine to learn from, you gain control over it. That ownership doesn't mean you beat yourself up. It means you respect the lesson enough to apply it. Failure then isn't a dead end. It's feedback. It's the world telling you that the way you approached something wasn't enough, and that now you have the chance to approach it differently. If you treat failure with that level of respect, it stops being the thing you fear and starts being the thing that forges you into someone stronger, wiser, and more capable of achieving what once felt impossible. Discipline over excuses is the line that separates those who dream from those who actually build something meaningful with their lives. Excuses are easy, they roll off the tongue and offer instant comfort. You tell yourself you're too tired, too busy, too unlucky, or that the timing just isn't right. In that moment, the excuse feels like relief because it justifies inaction, but that relief comes at a cost. Every excuse you make today compounds into regret tomorrow. Discipline, on the other hand, doesn't offer comfort. It demands effort. It forces you to show up, to do the hard and often boring work, even when you don't feel like it. But over time, that discipline builds a foundation that excuses never could. True discipline isn't about perfection or grinding endlessly without rest. It's about consistency and ownership. It's making the choice day after day to move closer to your goals, even in small ways, regardless of how you feel in the moment. That might mean studying for an hour when you'd rather scroll your phone, exercising when you'd rather sleep, or speaking up in a meeting even though fear tells you to stay silent. None of those choices are dramatic on their own, but repeated over time, they compound into transformation. Excuses thrive on emotion. They're tied to your moods, your fears, and your need for comfort. Discipline, by contrast, is tied to principle. It says, I will act according to what I value, not according to what I feel. That shift in mindset is powerful because it frees you from the trap of waiting for motivation. Motivation is fleeting. It's unreliable. Discipline is steady. It's what carries you through when the excitement of starting something new has faded and all that's left is the grind. Another truth about discipline is that it builds trust with yourself. Every time you follow through on what you said you would do, even in small ways, you strengthen that internal belief that you can rely on yourself. Over time, that self-trust becomes one of your greatest assets because it breeds confidence. You stop being someone who hopes for change and start being someone who knows how to create it. Excuses might protect your ego in the short term, but they sabotage your future. They keep you trapped in cycles of procrastination, self-doubt, and mediocrity. Discipline demands more from you, but it also gives more in return as you progress growth and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that whatever the outcome, you showed up and did the work. The truth is, discipline isn't glamorous. It's not about grand gestures or sudden breakthroughs. It's about showing up when it's hard, when it's dull, when no one else is watching. And while excuses fade into nothing, discipline leaves a legacy, a life that reflects intention, effort, and the courage to do what needed to be done, no matter how uncomfortable it felt in the moment. Creating a better future starts with a simple but uncomfortable truth. You cannot rewrite the past, but you can decide what you do with it. Every mistake, every failure, every moment you wish you could undo is now a lesson waiting to be used. The trap many people fall into is living in denial or resentment, either pretending the past didn't happen or blaming others for what went wrong. Neither approach moves you forward. Owning your past fully, without excuses or self-pity, is what allows you to start shaping a future that is stronger, wiser, and more deliberate than anything you have known before. Taking ownership of the past doesn't mean wallowing in guilt or shame. It means studying your history with clear eyes and asking, what can I learn from this? That willingness to confront uncomfortable truths is what separates people who grow from people who repeat the same cycles over and over. When you stop running from your history and instead treat it like a teacher, you give yourself the tools to build something better. The process of creating a better future is rarely dramatic. It doesn't usually come from one massive decision, but from countless small ones made consistently over time. Choosing to wake up an hour earlier to work on your skills. Choosing to have that difficult conversation instead of avoiding it. Choosing to break an unhealthy habit even when it feels impossible. These decisions, repeated day after day, are how a different future is built. What makes this process powerful is that it shifts your identity. When you begin taking intentional steps toward a better life, you stop seeing yourself as someone trapped by the past and start seeing yourself as someone capable of change. That shift in self-perception fuels momentum. You start to trust yourself, and that trust makes it easier to take bigger risks, set bigger goals, and push through setbacks without quitting. The road to a better future is never free of challenges. There will always be setbacks, criticism, and moments where you doubt whether your effort is even worth it. But when you've made the decision to take ownership, those obstacles don't have the same power to derail you. You've already accepted that the only person responsible for building your future is you, and that conviction gives you the resilience to keep going when others would stop. At its core, creating a better future is about reclaiming your agency and directing it towards something meaningful. It's about recognizing that your past may explain you, but it doesn't define you. The person you are becoming is forged by the choices you make today, choices to act, to grow, to persist even when it's hard. And over time, those choices turn into a future you can be proud of, not because it was handed to you, but because you built it, piece by deliberate piece. Life will never hand you perfect conditions, and failure, pain, and unfairness are part of everyone's story. But the truth we've uncovered in this message is simple. Your power lies in ownership. Stop blaming others. Stop waiting for someone to fix things. Take radical responsibility for your life. Reject the comfort of the victim mindset. Embrace your agency. Learn from every failure. Choose discipline over excuses, and commit to building a better future one deliberate choice at a time. The path isn't easy, but it's worth it. Because when you decide to take full responsibility, you stop being a passenger in your own life and start becoming its driver. And no matter where you are right now, that one decision can change everything. Thank you for listening, and good luck as you step into the next chapter of your life, stronger, wiser, and fully in control of the story you're writing.